hello everyone. My name is Saurabh and I work as solutions architect for the digital platforms team at Datacom Auckland. Sitecore is one of the DXP platforms my team and I work on, and I have been involved with Sitecore in one way or another since 2015. First of all, I appreciate each one of you joining this user group session over the weekend. And I want to extend special thanks to Annie for providing me this opportunity. In today's session, I'll be sharing, whatever my learnings and experiences, specifically with Sitecore XM Cloud Forms, and we'll be exploring and unpacking its key features and capabilities. I would also like to take this opportunity to thank broader Sitecore community for their fantastic webinars just after release of XM Cloud Form earlier this year. Also, Sitecore documentation. So like they have some excellent documentation on this product, which served as a very great starting point for me. So let's get started. So what are we covering in today's session? So today we'll be covering, how forms evolution in the Sitecore space. So starting from WFFM to Sitecore forms and now XM Cloud Forms. Next, we will look at few key pointers, which I think, we all should understand while we are transitioning from WFFM or Sitecore forms to XM Cloud Forms. We will then explore at a very high level what it takes to design and configure forms while we are working with this Forms app. After that, we'll have a live demo and we'll wrap up the session with a quick Q&A. So evolution of forms in Sitecore space. So for this, let's go back in history a bit. In Sitecore space, particularly in XM and XP world, form support was first introduced back in 2008-9, and that time, I think along with Sitecore 6.2. So it was a separate form module. I'm sure if you have worked with WFFM, you would know that. And so it was a separate installation altogether. And initially, it was used as a web form component, which we had to add on the Sitecore page. MVC support was introduced for WFFM along with Sitecore 7.2. And this is when I personally had chance to do some kind of hands-on development with WFFM. I can definitely say, after working on couple or say several projects with WFFM and then customizing action and then, styling issues, bugs during upgrade, etc., etc. So I will definitely argue on its name, right? Because it was actually not web form for marketers. It was kind of web form for developers, because as is, marketers could not use it most of the time. It means most of the time developer needs to come into picture, write some custom C# code for the submit action, style it, and then hand it over to content authors or marketers. But still, it did the job, and plus it was a product within Sitecore space. So yeah, it did. So and then starting Sitecore 9.x onwards, or I think 9.0 onwards, Sitecore kind of revamped entire WFFM, and forms module was along with the core product, which means no separate installation. And this was way better, right? So if you have experience both with WFFM and Sitecore forms, you will definitely agree that means in terms of the entire Sitecore form within the core product. So it had good drag and drop support. We could add logic within the forms. And even customization approach was more documented. So while writing custom action, we exactly know, what we need to write, how do we capture the fields, etc. So with introduction of Sitecore forms, I think developer, content author, marketer, all were kind of happy, right? But then in July 2022, right? So Sitecore space altogether, it was a parallel Sitecore universe created, right? Because the entire Sitecore ecosystem experienced a significant shift. And XM Cloud, Sitecore's own headless composable product, got introduced. And with its initial release, there was no form support inbuilt. But even that time, I think whole 2023, if forms was really needed, again, if you go back on that composable app concept, right? So you could still integrate with any third-party form system. But seeing the popularity of forms, Sitecore again introduced its own composable form app, and they named it as XM Cloud Forms. Again, based on architecture and design, it's fully composable, but currently it can be accessed only via XM Cloud license. So if you have your own XM Cloud instance, then you could use XM Cloud Forms app to create and design your forms. But as we will see, architecture and design-wise, it could be very well used as a separate composable app. So now let's dig deeper into XM Cloud Forms app. So again, as we have seen the evolution of forms in Sitecore space, right? So a developer who has worked on WFFM or Sitecore forms, if they are transitioning to XM Cloud Forms, based on what I have read, what I have worked, I would say there are two key things which we should definitely understand. First thing is this forms app is completely decoupled from Sitecore database. When I say completely decoupled, which means you just can't refer your content tree. As in, if you are having a drop-down field in your forms, you can't refer to your Sitecore data folder. Neither you could refer your media library and grab an image from there. So basically, you can't refer anything from your existing content tree. And this makes complete sense, right? Because as I have been saying a couple of times, composable. So if it is a composable app, which means it is an entity on its own. Number two, there are no more submit actions. And this is what we have been mostly doing as developers, right? So as soon form is designed, but then end of day, we need to capture that data and send it to some, our system. But here, like in Sitecore forms, you would see that there are a bunch of out-of-box action like save to DB, send email, or most of the time we code, right? We use C# code and we actually process that data. But here you cannot do any of those. But instead, Sitecore provides you option to configure webhooks. So webhooks, I'm sure most of you would have used it, or at least would have read about it, right? So webhook is basically a way by which one system can notify another system if there is any event triggered or there is some update. And in context of XM Cloud Forms, if you think of configuring webhooks, so end of day, it will be just an HTTP endpoint URL on which you could post your form data as a JSON payload, which we'll be seeing in our demo. So with XM Cloud Forms, it's your duty and job to process, user submitted data. Sitecore is completely out of it. So while working with XM Cloud Forms, if you think, so overall, it's a no-code solution. Low code, it is just one editor where you can write some code, which we'll be seeing, but basically it's a no-code solution altogether. And if we can, just highlight on a very high level what it takes to design and create forms in XM Cloud app. So step one, once you go in your form editor or form designer, so based on your designs, you have the option to select a particular layout. So Sitecore has already defined, bunch of layouts. If you want 1 column, 2 column, 3 column, etc. Based on your design, you start with choosing your layout. You also have a template library, and if you see if it fits your job, if it fits for purpose, you could choose that template library and start using that. And once you have your layout defined, then you could choose the fields, right? For example, single line text box, drop down, radio button, and whatnot. One important thing here is that we have to live with the field currently available in XM Cloud Forms app. We just cannot create any of the custom field, which we have been mostly doing in past. And then while you are dragging and dropping the field, you have the option to set up, field level validation. You could show field, hide field, depending on your need. Once you have finalized your layout, you have finalized your form element or fields, then you have option to style, maybe the entire form or the form elements. And basically, as we'll be seeing in the demo, so entire HTML element. So if you have a field, right? So end of day, it will have a bunch of HTML elements. So each and every HTML elements you could style without writing any CSS line of code. You could just go in the designer. So if you have worked with Canva or something, so in the similar way, you have option to style each and every HTML element. And here, Sitecore also gives you an option to create styles. And this is the only place where you can write some CSS code if you want to. And with this, and if you have created a style, so if you think that, yes, there are a bunch of forms which your editor will be creating going forward, so you could create some style, and this style can be reused even in the future forms which your editor or marketers will be creating. Once your form is designed, then you have the option to add logic to it just to make the form dynamic. And this is very much similar to what you can even do now in Sitecore forms. And once you're, once you have designed, added logic, then you could preview how the form will look in different breakpoints. And this is very similar to what you see currently in XM Cloud pages, right? Once you have designed your pages, you could preview it across different breakpoints. And then once you are good with your form preview, then you need to handle, what will be, so as soon your user has filled the form, so how you are going to handle those form data. So for this, you have the option where you could configure your webhook URL. You could set the security mechanism for the webhook URL. And you could also set what happens once the form is submitted. So in case of failure, it will be, so you will be having option wherein you could configure a failure message, which will be displayed beneath the form. In case of success, either you could set up a success message, which gets displayed beneath the form, or you could configure a complete URL where, user will be redirected. Once you are done with all this and testing, then you need to activate the form. And only once you have activated the form, it's available as a component which could be added to your XM Cloud pages. And then you just publish it, and form is available along with pages to your end user. So now we'll be seeing the entire thing in the demo. Before I jump to demo, is there any quick question which I could cover?
Feel free to unmute yourself if anyone has any questions. No, I guess you can go on.
Sure. Can you guys still see my browser getting loaded?
Yeah, seeing the the Sitecore portal.
Okay, good. Fine. So as I have mentioned in the slide, right? So though XM Cloud Forms app is a separate composable app as per design, but still currently it's accessible only via XM Cloud instance. So to access forms, you need to go to Sitecore portal, select your XM Cloud instance. And with the release of forms, Sitecore has added a new quick link by which you could access the corresponding form instance of your XM Cloud. So this is option one by which you could access forms. Second one would be a similar experience what we have been using currently in XM and XP world, as in from the Sitecore dashboard. So yeah, you have the forms link here as well by which you could access. But end of day, either ways, both lands you to the forms dashboard page. And to me, this forms dashboard page is a fancy list page of all your forms with search capability inbuilt. as in, all your forms, whatever you have for your XM Cloud instance gets displayed here, which you can search. So if you have something, you could just go ahead and search. If you have heaps of forms created, also you could filter forms. You have any. For the individual form, if you have, you could see, so you could perform certain actions for the form individually. You could activate forms individually, archive it, delete. A quick for deleters, so only inactive or draft forms could be deleted. So this was one request which I raised to Sitecore support a couple of months before, that if we have, say, for example, 100 forms, and now out of those 100 forms, I think 80 is not needed down the line. But if the forms have been activated, so you can just archive it, but you can't delete it. So like they have taken this request, and maybe they will come up with a solution by which we can make a form inactive and then delete. But currently, you could delete only if a form is inactive or draft. And then for the individual forms, you could also go, like for example, if I go and this one, as an individual form, you can go in settings. This is where you could have a quick preview of the form. If you don't know, like, means what this form contains, you could rename it from here. And in terms of bulk operations, if you want, you could even do bulk operation, and you could, archive the form together. And let me archive all the forms, whatever I have. So at the moment, I just, sorry, there are heaps of forms for me. Okay, so if you see currently, I have just one archived form. So just to set the context, let me go on XM Cloud Pages app. And as I have said, right, in slide, so only the forms which are activated and non-archived, which is just one, right? So at the moment, I will just see one forms component available. But if I just go and bring all the forms here, I will have all those forms getting displayed as forms component. Cool. So coming from the top navigation, the second tab is webhooks. Again, similarly, it's a listing page for all the webhooks, what you have, where you could filter, search, etc. You could also create webhooks from here if needed. And while you're creating the webhook, it gives you 3 security options by which you could configure. So depending on the your actual provider which you are integrating, you could choose one amongst these, and then you could set up. So basically, what you are setting up is just a URL. As I was saying, it's just an HTTP endpoint where you will be posting your JSON payload, right? And the last tab here is styles. So styles is the place where you could create reusable styles, which if you think you will be using across multiple forms, you could just come here and create a style. And you could go even here without writing line of code. You could just use the builder here and style each and every element of the form. So here Sitecore already has given you all the possible fields which could be added on the form, and you could style it just via this editor. But if you really want full control and you want to show your CSS skills, you can go in the CSS editor and you could style it. And then this style could be applied to any of your future forms or existing form. So now let's go ahead and start creating a new form from scratch. So as soon as you create the form from here, you could give a name. And if you remember step 1, right? So you start by selecting a layout, right? So Sitecore already reminds you by start building your layout. You could choose full width if you want, if your design says that, yes, you need a couple of more layouts associated here, you could just choose as many you want depending on your need. And then here it already says you, so it's so intuitive, right? It already says you to add item, and items are nothing but the fields if you want to relate with the previous context, right? So, and these are all the out of box available fields, and we have to live with these available fields. We can't go ahead and create a custom field as we need. But the good thing here is that since this is a SaaS product, which means Sitecore is listening, they are improving on it. So if you see the release notes of XM Cloud, right, from last few months, I think 4 or 5 months, in their every new patch, you will see something means update coming for the Forms app. Like for example, file upload was introduced new, and the other update which I want to call out, which was done a couple of months back. So if a form was activated, we were not able to edit it. Even that improvement is already available. So what I want to highlight is that maybe if you think a field is not present, which we are using, we could, just go ahead and raise a request. And if that makes sense, you'll be seeing that in the future release. So for this demo, let's add a single line field here. And when I was saying adding a field and what option you have to customize, right? So if you see this highlighted window, so this is a single line text box. So entire thing, so whatever HTML or corresponding HTML for this field, you will have option to customize it here in terms of styling, in terms of label, text, whether it's required, in terms of validation. So either you could make it required, you could write your own regex if you want to. And if you see what kind of styling you could do, you could style the field, you could style the label, you could style the placeholder, you could style the help text. So actually no coding skill is needed here. You could just come and style the HTML element what you want to. One important field which we should know as a dev, or say an important setting, which Sitecore is saying here as well, that field name should be unique. So as soon you drag and drop a field, it will have an auto-generated name associated to it. So what important thing here is that we should be changing this to a unique name, and more than unique, it should be a a meaningful name, because the name what you add here becomes the property name or key name of your JSON payload, which gets posted to your webhook. So if you go to your downstream system, because if I leave it as is, then in the downstream system, it will be called as text underscore whatever, right? And it will be hard for someone who is processing the data in that downstream system. So if it is, for example, means username, so it makes more sense to have a meaningful name here. And then you could add, so here, when you're creating a form, you could create it multi-page. So I think we can do the same in Sitecore forms as well, right? But the limitation here is that we could create a max of 10 pages. But yeah, why do you want more than that? And if you have noticed, as soon as I have added a new page, it automatically changed. So the first one became next, last one is submit. Another gotcha with multi-page form, which again is obvious, that if you're trying to, bring a reCAPTCHA in your first page, you'll be having a validation saying that reCAPTCHA should always be added at last page, which anyways you do. So this was a basic thing about how do you set a layout, add a field. Next, on the form level, there are a bunch of settings. Like if you go on the options tab, here, the key ones which I wanted to highlight would be validation messages. So if you want to have a custom validation message per form, right, based on your business need, you could come here and change these validation messages, which will be only applicable to this particular form where we are. Second one, I wanted, yeah, so like now this background image. So if I want to add a background image, if you see in this pop-up, there is no reference to your media library. So either you could bring a local file from your PC, or you could connect to different accounts, what is available here, but it has no reference at all to your Sitecore database. So like, for example, if I select, yeah, I could choose either of those. You could bring in new fonts. Yeah, but again, all these settings, what you have, it's on the form level. But now for this demo, what I would do, as I have also mentioned, that we could also reuse from an existing template. So once you have created the form, you could also go and see what are the available templates you have by this load template. So currently Sitecore gives us 5 templates, which comes with the default installation. And you could also design and create your own template. So while working, if you know that that your marketers will need a certain or say they need to create multiple forms of certain template, so you could design a template for them which they could duplicate, and they could tweak and spin up a new form. So for this demo, I have created a demo template form here which I'll be using, and as soon as I'm using it, it will erase whatever changes I have done till now. Okay, so at the moment in this template, what I had was just an image and a couple of fields. So I could just come here and update it. So let me bring a couple of fields here for the sake of this demo. And this is a rich text editor, which was the text field from here, which means you have all the option to style it, tweak it as you do in any RT. Full name, as you see, like I have changed the name to which makes more sense. I could make it required. Message, I have left as is so that we see, how it's get impacted in the JSON payload. Let's add a bunch of other fields as well here. So for example, let me bring a radio button. Okay, as so, let me remove the help text not needed. Change this to user choice. Let's make it required. And as I was saying, right, so we can't refer to any of the values from our Sitecore content tree. So if it's a radio button, either you could have, so means that values, what gets displayed needs to be defined here. So let me bring some audio, email, callback. Okay, and since I have done this, let me get a couple of more fields. This is for email. I don't need any help text. And let me hide this field by default. And let me get one more, which is phone. So Sitecore gives you by default a fancy phone field. I don't need help text here as well. User phone. And by default, let's hide this field as well. So which is good. I have made this mandatory. So basically so how we have designed this form is user comes here, gives their name, message, and it's a mandatory field, email callback, and by default, this will not be displayed. So the reason why I have added these 2 fields just to showcase how we could add some logic to it. So if user selects email, we could, display the email field, or user selects callback, we could display the phone field. We could quickly preview it just to ensure. Yeah, so if we see phone and email is not shown by default. So we could come in the logic part, add logic, and user choice is equal to email, add action, show field, email. We can also make it mandatory if user has selected. So user needs to, enter something, make a field required. This makes sense. Yep. Let's add one more logic. User choice is equal to callback. Action as show field. Phone. And let's make this as required. Cool. Save a version. And now if we come here, we should be able to see it working. Perfect. So now till now, what we have done is we have chosen the particular template, we have edited, we have brought bunch of fields, we have added, and we have made this form basically dynamic, right? By having a couple of logics integrated here, all drag and drop. And now what we need to do is we need to configure a webhook. So for this particular one, I will be just using webhook.site. And this is just to showcase, how a webhook URL will means how we could configure this HTTP point in the webhooks in XM Cloud form, and how the JSON will be getting posted on this webhook URL. So let me copy this, and we can go finally in the settings, and we could come to manage webhooks, create webhook. Okay, and this was the URL. And let's choose no authentication. Save. Okay, so now I could choose it from here. And before I go and test this webhook, I will do a couple of things more here. I could come and apply style to form. So, I could reuse the style which I have created. So I could just come here and I could choose that style. And in terms of submit action, so again, it says submit action, but basically this is where you could, set if you want to show a success message just beneath your form, or if you want to redirect it to your particular URL, your home page or something. So I'll leave this as is, and here we could now test our webhook. So if we see it says it's mandatory, so I could give some name. Something. And if I give callback, I don't want to share my number. So I could just say, what's my email? And as soon as I submit. So if you see here, and this is, so we are still in the Forms app window. So it also shows you here itself, what is your JSON payload. So if you see all the name fields which we have given, right, a meaningful name. So this is what it comes here. But for the description or long text we have, so we left it as is. So the same system generated field name is shown here. And this is as is JSON, which will be posted to your, means downstream system. So it makes more sense to have a meaningful name. And as soon as you submit, this will be posted to your webhook. So yeah, so if you're happy with this, next thing what you would do is you can just save it, or you could activate it from here itself. And as I was saying, right, so you could also create a particular form as a template if you think if it's going to be reused in future. So let me save and activate from here itself. As soon we activate this, now we can see that this is active form. So if we go on the pages application in my XM Cloud instance, so let me remove this. Yeah. So I could just, yeah, this is the form which we have created. I could just drag and drop it from here. And if you see, style has changed because I have applied a particular style. And now it is just matter of publishing the page. While this page is getting published, let me show you a couple of things which I wanted to showcase. So let me go to the content tree. Yeah, so we have added, so if you have seen in the page editor, it clearly said the particular form name and we could just drag and drop it as a component, right? But if I go in the content tree and if I see the particular page, presentation details, and if you have been working on XM Cloud, you would know about this bring your own component wrapper, right? So this is how we bring any external component to our XM Cloud instance. So though XM Cloud Forms comes along with XM Cloud instance, but the way it is getting integrated to our page is as BYOC wrapper. And that's what gives me confidence, right? So down the line, maybe Sitecore releases it as a separate composable form app, because by design and architecture, it ticks all boxes of being a composable form app. Okay. And then before I go on the published page, I want to show you one more form, which is the submit session form, which I have done for the other user group. So, and the reason why I'm showing you this form is, again, in terms of forms and field, everything is same, but just wanted to show the art of possibility if you are using a ready-made solution like Sitecore Connect or Zapier, so what you could actually do. So if I go ahead and see here what I have in this form. So basically in this form in page 1, and this is just for, submitting your session. So in screen 1 or page 1, I'm just collecting speakers info as a name, email, etc. And in page 2, I am asking speaker to give details about their session. And the particular webhook which I have associated is what I have created in Zapier. So you could very well use Sitecore Connect as well for this particular thing. But basically what I am doing here is as soon, end user is filling the form. So I want Zapier to listen to the JSON payload, which gets posted on the webhook endpoint. And then based on that user submitted data, I want to create an entry in an Excel sheet in a Google Drive. And once that is done, I want to send an email to the organizer along with that Google Drive link. And I also wanted to send a confirmation email to the user that, yes, your session is submitted. So, and again, all these are pre-built recipe. And if you see, so here I could just define that. So here Zapier will listen to the webhook and the post and that JSON which is posted. And once I have all that data available here, I could create a spreadsheet row in Google. I could send email to organizer. Again, I'm using here just the email by Zapier, but you could use even your own email provider if you have to. And finally, I'm sending confirmation email back to speaker. So if this is what I just wanted to highlight, what we could actually do with systems like Zapier or Sitecore Connect. Now, assuming form is published, let's go to the published website URL. So, no, this is not the one. Yeah. So this is the form which we have created. So again, I'm not going and submitting here because this is not connected to the actual webhook. But if you see, the form is associated with our contact us page. What I would instead submit for now is the submit session. So this, like, just for the sake of this demo, I would just submit and show how, all those predefined recipe works. So I could give my email. Okay, next session title, maybe your integration with XM Cloud. Select a duration. Now I'm not ready with the PDF. I could just submit it. So as soon, and here I am redirecting it back to the home page. So as soon I have submitted, a new entry should be there in this, Google Sheet, which we see here. Second thing, I expect it to send an email to organizer. So, and here, this is all information which was filled in the form by the end user, right? So by user full name, topic, and also I was able to, share the link of the Google Drive by which organizers could go and review. And as a speaker, I should have also received an email in my inbox. Yeah. So this was just a quick, showcase of what are the key features by which we could, and actually now, as I was saying in the beginning, right, that naming when it was called earlier WFFM web form for marketers. So I feel now this XM Cloud Forms app is the forms for marketers which they could use even without help of developers, if that's the ask. So yeah, I'm done with my demo. Open for questions.
Nice. Thank you, Saurabh. Thank you for taking us through this. If anyone has any questions, again, feel free to unmute yourself. I do see. I see a message from Nishant, but no question. Nishant, if you have a question.
No, I don't have a question, but can I connect later post this event, if that is fine? In this
Yeah, sure.
call. All right.
Hi, Saurabh. It's Shobit this side. I have one question.
Mm-hmm.
You said that that the images were linked with in the forms, exemplar
Mm-hmm.
forms, that the images can be linked with the other systems, like the different systems that were there, like local
Mm-hmm.
PC and all. So, is there
Mm-hmm.
a reason that you think that that is not connected with our Sitecore internal media library?
Yeah, so reasoning would be based on the entire architecture. If you see, like, because if Sitecore is saying that it's a composable form app, right? And if you from architecture start connecting it with media library, then it becomes a hard dependency, right? Because in future, if they want to release it outside XM Cloud world, then that will be a blocker basically, right? So currently the way they have designed it and they have released it, so it's completely independent, self-contained unit. And that is what I would think is the reason why why they don't have any connection. As I showed you, right, even when we add the form component to the page, behind the scene, it is added as BYOC wrapper concept of XM Cloud. So it is not getting added as an XM Cloud component. So I would think that would be the reason.
Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah, thanks a lot.
No problem.
Cool. Thank you so much, Saurabh, for taking the time, and thank you everyone for attending. And we'll be sharing the recording on our channel shortly. So thanks everyone again, and have a good rest of your